Allow me to start off this review by saying that I absolutely adore Star Wars. Whenever somebody hasn't seen Star Wars, I'm the guy they're afraid to tell because they know that I'm never gonna let them hear the end of it. My most viewed VHS tape as a kid was Return of the Jedi, a film I still see as my favorite in the entire saga. That's an unpopular opinion. While I can fully acknowledge that The Empire Strikes Back is objectively a better movie, I just love Jedi more. And for me, it comes down to one thing. The story that we get in Return of the Jedi is outstanding. The redemption of Anakin Skywalker, a man who sacrifices himself to save his only son, still gives me all the goosebumps, and I refuse to apologize for it. Years ago, when the new trilogy was announced, my biggest concern was how do you top an ending that is essentially flawless? They would need to lovingly pay tribute to what came before while introducing us to new characters, new worlds, new ships, new lore, new challenges, new sacrifices. Everything would have to look bigger and better, but still hit on the same beats that I love about the earlier movies. The Force Awakens was a solid enough start. While certainly familiar, it gave us a new family to root for, new villains to hate, new jokes to laugh at, and a new story to engage with. The Last Jedi came along and did its best to undo everything we knew and loved about Star Wars. Princess Leia could suddenly fly through space in a vacuumless void, gravity was irrelevant, you didn't need an airlock to get into space, all of a sudden everyone had gas and fuel in Star Wars, there was a casino planet, because capitalism is bad or whatever. And in case you haven't noticed, Rian Johnson was so concerned about subverting our expectations, he forgot to make a movie that actually answered any questions or showed respect to the movies that had come before. So in 2019, we received the final movie in the Skywalker Saga, The Rise of Skywalker. What does that mean for Star Wars fan? It means we have a movie with an awful chaotic script, plot lines that are introduced and discarded, and a structure that both tries to remedy The Last Jedi, but also ignores that film when it's convenient. In case you couldn't tell from the intro to this video, I'm a huge sucker for nostalgia. I'm that guy that will cry at the movies, and I would be lying if I said that Rise of Skywalker didn't make me shed a few tears too. That said, the nostalgia in this movie is also a mixed bag. You can almost feel the filmmakers winking at each other while writing the script, and that pours itself out onto the screen and onto the audience. That doesn't mean that everything is bleak in a galaxy far, far away. All of the actors here are great in their respective roles. You can tell that Oscar Isaac and John Boyega are having fun. Daisy Ridley and Adam Driver as Rey and Kylo respectively still have incredible chemistry, and I genuinely wanted to see where their relationship would go. Carrie Fisher sadly died well before Rise of Skywalker went into production, and both J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy talked about wanting to implement Leia seamlessly into the final movie. Well, they did implement her, and it's pretty clear she's saying lines, and the other characters saying lines, and never the two shall meet. It came off as a bit too try-hardy and felt kinda jarring. So now that I've given you some of my basic thoughts on the latest from Team Disney, here is where I jump into the spoilers and give you the realness. You have been warned, it is time for spoilers, baby. I'm gonna hit you with bullet points on the various twists and turns that permeate the Rise of Skywalker because good lord, there's quite a lot of it. Okay, so Rey, I told you, spoilers, Rey is the granddaughter of Emperor Palpatine. I'm 100% certain that this was mentioned in a fan fiction or Reddit post or something over the course of the last few years. I don't hate the idea, but this is something that you shouldn't be getting around to in the middle of the third and final movie. This should have been a known quantity earlier in the saga, like way earlier. This does do a pretty good job of explaining why Rey is so strong in the Force. Dark Rey would have been awesome if done correctly, and Finn becomes legitimately concerned that Rey is going in that direction at one point in the movie, and of course the film never follows up on it. The Rose/Rey/Finn love triangle. Okay, so Rose clearly still has a chubby for Finn. There's this moment where Poe, Rey, and Finn are sinking into quicksand, but I'm sure it was called something else in the movie, and Finn is about to tell Rey that he loves her, at least that's the impression I got. They do this whole, hey, what were you going to say when we were in danger follow-up, and then they do it again later, but unless I miss something, the plotline is never finished. Finn never actually says what he wants to say to Rey, and it was pretty weird because they kept calling back to it. I also feel like they really missed out on an opportunity here when they fell into quicksand. At no point did any of the characters say that I don't like sand. Teleportation using the Force is basically a thing now. Rey has this necklace that some native person gives her, and when she's mind bridging with Kylo, which still happens even though Snoke is dead, he steals the necklace from her to track where she is, even though they're not in the same place. Okay. This will also become super duper important later in the movie because, of course, it will be. Finn is clearly Force sensitive. He knows things are going to happen before they happen. They talk about doing the Holdo maneuver to destroy the Final Order fleet, but then they're just like, nah, and it's dismissed with a line of dialogue. I felt like this was a fairly direct shot at Rian Johnson, but maybe that's just me. Palpatine is back, baby. That's right, the Senate himself makes his triumphant return. He's actually pretty badass here. I guess he's back because of cloning or something. They establish it in the very beginning of the movie, but I kind of missed it. The idea that Palpatine was pulling strings this whole time is the biggest stretch you could possibly imagine. This is the ultimate, oh god, Rian Johnson screwed us over, what do we do now to fix this moment in the entire movie, which is definitely saying something, because it happens a lot. Palpatine repeats his line from the prequels, the dark side is a pathway to many abilities that some consider to be unnatural, and I'm not gonna lie, they really got me good with that one. Palpatine creates a new fleet of Star Destroyers that have Death Star tech that can wipe out a planet, and one of them does, and that's pretty cool. The Emperor names his new fleet / empire / corporation / 501c3 the Final Order, and I loved it. Palpatine created Snoke in a lab to tempt Rey to the dark side of the Force. I'm going to repeat that one for the record. Palpatine created Snoke in a lab to tempt Rey to the dark side of the Force. Okay. At least they answered the question about where Snoke came from. And my last segment here is called I'm Not Dead, JK I'm Dead. And vice versa. This happens a lot. At one point we think Chewbacca's dead, but he's not. At another point in the story, Leia becomes one with Kylo Ren in order to redeem him, but then Rey stabs him all the way through, which kills Leia, but she doesn't vanish, she just dies. This will be important later. She'll vanish later in the movie and turn into a Force ghost, but I don't remember why. Then Rey uses the Force to heal Kylo Ren, which was telegraphed earlier when Rey healed a snake in a cave. Oh, and when Leia dies, Chewie absolutely loses it. He becomes inconsolable. In Chewie's defense, the Wookiee has been through a lot, and it's really sad. After this, Kylo Ren has a vision of his father, and he gives up on being Kylo Ren to become Ben Solo. This part was awesome. At the end of the movie, Rey uses all of her energy and all of her Force power to destroy the Emperor, and then she dies. But then, Ren Solo crawls out of a hole that we thought he had died in and uses the Force to transfer himself into Rey, like Leia did with him, so Rey comes back to life, and then Rey and Ren Solo kiss, and he dies. In case you didn't notice, Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, is a beat-for-beat remake of Romeo and Juliet, except instead of the Montagues and the Capulets, we get the Skywalkers and the Palpatines. We are introduced to a handful of new characters with mixed results. Kerry Russell is a bounty hunter who has some sort of previous beef with Poe, but the character is barely developed. And of course, we think she's dead at one point, but she's not, because nobody involved with the writing of The Rise of Skywalker wanted to make a decision and stick with it. Richard E. Grant is General Pride, a new bad guy. He's pretty awesome. He's nasty, dedicated to the cause, and seems to actually know what he's doing. There's some girl that may or may not be Lando's daughter. This is another dangled thread that goes nowhere. We have a new droid that's voiced by J.J. Abrams. I don't remember what he's called, but he's pretty cute. Babu Freak is a new creature who helps our heroes out. He got the biggest laughs in my theater, and I thought he was great. We also have some characters that return from the previous films, or don't return from the previous films. Captain Phasma is still dead and useless. She's contributing as much here as she did during the last two films. DJ, the hacker / scoundrel from The Last Jedi, nowhere to be found. Rose, the awkward last-minute love interest for Finn from The Last Jedi, she gets maybe 3 minutes of screen time and doesn't join our heroes because she has to babysit a computer for reasons or something. I also wanted to address some of the technical aspects, starting with the film's music. Anytime John Williams is involved, you know it's going to be good, and of course that's the case here. We get solid, if not spectacular work from Williams, who has outright said that this is the final Star Wars movie that he'll be scoring. Rise of Skywalker doesn't give us anything nearly as fresh and compelling as Duel of the Fates, and it's pretty sad that the greatest film composer in history was saddled with a mediocre film trilogy to finish out an exemplary Star Wars career. One additional major complaint about this new sequel trilogy is the lack of good lightsaber fights, and that remains the case with this movie. For the first time since The Force Awakens, we actually get to see two characters fight using their lightsabers. Thanks guys, took you long enough. It's extremely disappointing that we've had 3 movies with a combined budget of somewhere around $800 to $900 million, if not more after marketing, and have not gotten a single lightsaber battle that comes anywhere close to the Darth Maul / Qui-Gon / Obi-Wan fight from The Phantom Menace, or the Obi-Wan / Anakin fight from Revenge of the Sith. Okay, so now that I've covered as many spoilers as possible, let's wrap this thing up. I'm not even going to tell you whether you should see this or not. You just sat through a bullet point list of spoilers, so you've probably already seen it. The movie has some amazing set pieces. solid space action, and some awesome acting. The problems with the script really drag the experience down for me, so I would have a hard time recommending it on its own. We'll see how this one holds up over time. If things like common sense, MacGuffins, and plot armor don't bother you, you will probably love The Rise of Skywalker. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, share, or comment below, and I'll see you next time.